Ted Cruz suddenly on the move in Iowa. Explain to me what you think is happening there.
What's happening is voters are starting to coalesce around an outsider with insider experience, an outsider who knows his way around Washington, D.C., who's trusted in the evangelical community. Even in 2012, where folks say evangelical turnout was down, particularly in the general election, about 57% of the caucus voters were evangelical. So that's a very strong community there. He's been in the churches. He's got a great grassroots team. And I think on the super-PAC side, we're just trying to support what the senator is doing, what we see him doing publicly.
Sure. But you think, I mean, a lot of people, the conventional wisdom right now is very much, there's a lot of good conventional wisdom out there for Ted Cruz right now. And part of it is that in this moment, post-Paris, that Ben Carson's foreign policy weaknesses, shall we say, have actually cost him in an appreciable way in this last week, and that is what we're seeing. In addition to Senator Cruz's strength, that's part of the dynamic that's playing out in that state. Do you think that's basically right?
I think that's part of it, John, and a very smart person observed to me in September when I said, well, you know, people eventually are going to have to say, can I picture so-and-so as my commander-in-chief? Fill in the blank here. And maybe with Dr. Carson, they'll say, I really can't picture as my commander-in-chief. And that smart person said, well, his people can picture him that way. And there's something to that. But there's no question that the tenor and the content of the race have changed. I also think with the sort of demise, if you will, of the governors, this whole governor model, we need a governor, we need a governor. And I said to myself, where did that come from? And then I remembered the governor said we need a governor. Somehow Washington experience, just a little bit of it, so that you're not a lifer, has somehow buoyed Senators Rubio and Cruz, that they are in these intelligence briefings. They understand what's going on. They're each of them is one of 100 men and women who vote on these things, and that does keep you within the aura of commander-in-chief.
Yep.
Kellyanne Conway, the Cruz super PACs are organized in an unusual way. It's a cluster of different groups doing different things, largely funded by different families or other donors. How's that working, and what's the logic behind it?
It's working very well, Mark. The logic behind it was that you had different families and individuals who were in support of Senator Cruz and his aspiration to be the Republican nominee and president of the United States, and they decided they'll all be under the umbrella of Keep the Promise, but they would have different numbers for each of their super PACs, so that if somebody has a priority on digital, somebody has a priority on broadcast and cable, somebody believes very much in the ground game. It's really different of tactics, but we coordinate constantly. We fly around to meet each other. We talk regularly. And I think what we're trying to do, Mark, is not be duplicative. We find a lot of waste, particularly in super PACs, if you're not careful about duplicating resources and duplicating efforts. My going philosophy is that it's the old saw that the fastest way to have a small fortune, make a small fortune, is to have a very large one and waste most of it. So we're trying to avoid that.
One of the super PACs has got troops on the ground in Iowa. Our colleague Steve Yacino reporting now people going onto the ground in South Carolina. Some are skeptical that super PACs can do the so-called ground game, field organizing and voter contact. What's your view of how valuable that is and how possible it is for a super PAC to do that on behalf of the candidate?
It's possible, and I actually think it's prudent to do that on behalf of a candidate. Not the way the campaign can do it. Let's face it, a super PAC is not a campaign. But the way we've tried to organize Keep the Promise One is at a mini campaign, in that we've invested in people as well as eventually running broadcast and cable ads. Why have we done that? Because we find there are many different ways to touch the voter. You can touch the voter through text messaging, phone banking, digital, broadcast, cable, but also organizing on the ground. And I think organizing on the ground is very much in keeping with who Senator Cruz is. The only people angry at Ted Cruz when he shows up at an event are the fire marshals, because these crowds spill over into the outside and they have to open more doors. Now, I know in the past, Mark, and frankly in the present, there are super PACs that seem to exist almost solely to collect the money and run ad after ad after ad after ad. We're trying not to do that, and you see what's happened. I just read John Kasich's super PAC has run $5.4 million of ads just in New Hampshire. He's at 9%. We've run $0 of ads in New Hampshire. We're at 9%. Right to Rise, $19.3 million. And I think the effect, the intent there was to have Governor Jeb Bush's poll numbers move, and they did, just in the wrong direction. So we're being patient. We're built for the long haul. Have to have ground troops there to organize folks to get out to the polls. We know, as Senator Cruz often says, that many very conservative Tea Parties, evangelicals stayed home in the past because they felt uninspired. We want to make sure that we can do our part in changing that.
I want to talk to you about the other two people. Anita Dunn, who was just on, said that her three likeliest nominees, Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, and Marco Rubio, in no particular order. I want to talk to you about both of those two potential rivals. I think a lot of people think that's the top tier now, right? So one of the premises of the Cruz approach has been that eventually the two real outsider candidates and the two frontrunners for a long time, Trump and Carson, would fade away. Maybe we're seeing Carson start to fade away now. We'll see. Trump not fading at all, stronger than ever.
Yes.
So is there a way for Ted Cruz to win even his bracket, let alone the nomination itself, unless something happens that we haven't seen so far with Donald Trump? And if so, what is that thing?
John, yes, I am much more realistic than other people who preface almost every conversation with when Trump and Carson fade away or after Trump and Carson are gone. Folks, when and how does that happen? We've been having this conversation for 5 months. And Trump's sheer durability in the polls is really a wake-up call to folks. Some of those anecdotes I read recently where a wealthy donor to maybe Bush or somebody else said, sure, I support Bush, but my gardener, my nannies, my chauffeur, all these other people are supporting Trump. And there's something to that. We can't do anything about the other players right now until we've got our own message out. And one thing that we're going to do is, I recognize that Donald Trump, like Hillary Clinton, probably has 110% name ID among voters. We really don't in Cruz world. Senator Cruz, a lot of the voters have information underload about Senator Cruz. They don't know his family's American dream story that rivals that of the Rubio family. They don't know his major impact on American jurisprudence when he argued successfully in front of the Supreme Court so many times, and the impact that that has had on our constitutional rights. What did Ted Cruz do before he went to the United States Senate in his 40s? He's not a political lifer, so we want to do some of that backfill.
So let me just ask you about Rubio now. For a lot of, again, I believe you have said you could imagine a world where it was Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio as
in that order
as the finalists, right? So it seems like you're going not you, but the Cruz campaign, Ted Cruz himself, going after, spending a lot of time on Marco Rubio right now, attacking him on immigration. Rubio spending a lot of time attacking Cruz on surveillance. That battle starting a little earlier than I think some people thought. Just give me your theory of the case with Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio.
Sure. The theory of the case first is that the Republicans are going to benefit from this transformational generational change that has always catapulted the Democrats. The Democratic Party has been masterful at elevating and indeed electing these young guys without a ton of experience, JFK, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, even Jimmy Carter was 52 with a 9-year-old daughter when he got to the White House. And we end up nominating Romney, McCain, Dole, wonderful Americans. I value their public service, but that's not the model we're going for this time. And you see that's not working this time. So these guys in their mid-40s with just a little bit of experience in Washington, they represent the generational transformational change. They also represent the future of the party, given that they're both Hispanic. Here's the other thing that's happening. The theory of the case is we believe in the super-PAC world that there are certain deal breakers to the voters that they may just not be able to get past. And for Senator Rubio, that is clearly the fact that he dropped his bags down when he got to the United States Senate, crossed the hallway, and started doing deals with Chuck Schumer. There is a trending term, Shubio. Senator Schumer himself last week gave a great interview to the New York Times wherein he said the facts are the facts. Senator Rubio fought really hard for the amnesty legislation, and Senator Cruz is always against it.
Let me get Mark in real quick right now for one last one.
We're between reporting periods, so do us a favor and tell us how much money are the Cruz super PACs collectively sitting on now in the bank?
I would never say that. We have ample resources, but not unlimited resources. And at Keep the Promise One, I plan to spend every penny of it helping Senator Cruz get the nomination.
Is it more than 60 million?
No comment.
I had to try.
Ample, but not unlimited. I'm going to use that line in other contexts as we move forward.